Hey everyone, it's me Shimon and welcome to episode 12 of yet another tech podcast. This week I've got a special guest. It's none other than Juan Bagnell, aka SomeGadgetGuy, to wrap up everything that just happened at MWC, including smartphones like Nokia 9, Samsung Galaxy S10, foldables like Galaxy Fold, Mate X, mirrorless cameras, and much, much more. So if that sounds interesting to you, hop along the ride. It's going to be really, really awesome. So, for those who don't know about you, which I doubt, why don't you introduce yourself?
I think a lot of people don't know about me. I'm not that big a deal. I'm a pretty big deal, but no. I'm some gadget guy. I've been at the gadget and tech reviewing game for 12 years now, 13 years, as at least some kind of part-time or full-time job endeavor. I was formerly a commercial casting director. I used to do a lot of work in voiceover, directing voiceover and casting commercial voiceover. And then from there, I started writing tutorials on how to do home recording, and then that kind of pushed me into reviewing microphones and recording equipment, and then that branched out into just general consumer tech. And it's still a major part of what I try to cover today. You've probably caught me on a bunch of other websites and TV channels and satellite radio interviews, and I've kind of just become that little tech pundit that people like to bring in when they want someone to get a little cranky about something new. And then I go back to my own YouTube channel and then make a ton of reviews about really inexpensive headphones that you should use instead of AirPods.
That's great. Did you keep a check on what's happening on MWC, or were you like too busy and not having a look at what's going on?
It was unfortunate. Again, because my job is a little all over the place. I wasn't able to go this year. I was I booked paying jobs, so to fly out to MWC on my own dime to hopefully make content that would pay for the trip, or get a sponsorship or something like that was a little rough. But one of my other gigs is I host for Newegg, and we're gutting our studio at Newegg. So short story long, I wasn't able to go, but I was plugged in pretty hard. I tried to catch every live stream. I was really disappointed by the companies that didn't host some kind of live stream for their content, like LG. I'm looking at you. But yeah, I feel like this was a very interesting year for a conversation about super expensive premium devices, and then the flip side of that, more companies looking at how they can shake up what's now the mid-range. It used to be the premium sector, the premium price tier, but now that's like half the price of an iPhone or half the price of a Galaxy is now what we used to pay for a high-end, top-tier, premium flagship product. I hate all these adjectives. I just want to look at the market and only deal with price. If something is half the price of an iPhone, it's a mid-ranger, and that's kind of where I still draw the line. But yeah, that conversation I think has been a lot more exciting than what's $1,000 phone offer versus what's a $600 phone offer. Mm-hmm. And the two are now pretty similar. I mean, the purchasing decisions are pretty crazy. So a rambling way to answer your question is, yes, I tried to pay attention to MWC this year.
But do you feel that this year's MWC was much better than the last year? The last year was kind of cumbersome or stale kind of, but this year it was really exciting.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of companies had that feeling last year that we're getting into anniversaries for a lot of manufacturers. Apple never really showcases mobile tech at MWC, and so the end of last year we were sort of in the second generation of iPhone 10, the 10s Max, the 10R. That doesn't happen at an MWC. Likewise, we all kind of knew, well, Samsung's probably going to try and do something special for their 10th anniversary, for their Galaxy S10 event. And we had all those rumors popping up and leaks coming up about some type of folding phone or modular, some type of Note. So it really does feel like a number of companies were in a holding pattern. And last year was a bit more about iteration and refinement, which is fine. I like those years better, where manufacturers are improving on the things that work well, fixing some of the issues with their products, and then delivering something special. I actually kind of wish more manufacturers were following that iPhone number year, S year, number year, S year. So I think we'd get better products for it, but it's not as exciting if the visual aesthetic of a gadget doesn't change every 9 months, right?
Yeah.
So this year felt like companies were coming out with more and they had more to show off. But there are some trends that I'm a lot less excited about, and I don't have a lot of confidence that the manufacturers we follow have good solutions for what comes after the smartphone. Right now, I feel we'll just give you more smartphone doesn't solve a huge number of problems that we've had since the beginning of look at glowing rectangle, touch square, get program. I think that's still been something we've had since the early days of the Xerox UI. And when I see what a lot of manufacturers are working on to try and excite consumers, I don't see them solving those problems. I see them, this feels cynical to me. This feels like we're going to try and impress you with something you didn't even know you wanted, but that's really not addressing
how they can make us spend more money.
Well, and because we know the smartphone market is plateauing, right? Like the people who own a phone or who want to own a phone own a nice phone. We have some huge ground to make up in developing markets, in LTE emerging markets, on the cusp of 5G arriving in more developed industrial nations. There are numerous other areas where we could be exploring market opportunities, but when I see something like a folding phone, I see, well, how can we extract just some last gasp of wealth out of a premium market? And I just don't believe that they're real products. I believe that they are test bed, information gathering, sort of like a Google Glass kind of experiment that you get to pay a premium for. And I'll be very curious to see if this market segment has longevity and if they can live up to the durability requirements of a daily lifestyle gadget and get the support that we should be demanding of these manufacturers over a year, 2 or 3 years of ownership.
Correct. So we will get into that in a little bit. So let's go in a chronological order. So
Sure.
First, Samsung held their event with the S10, S10 Plus, S10e, and the Galaxy Fold.
Yeah.
So what do you think about these new trio of devices? Or actually, they're 4.
I was actually hoping
5 if you count the 5G one.
Right. No, and we should count that.
Yes.
This is what's frustrating for me is what I used to love about Samsung was their everything in the kitchen sink approach to building a gadget. If you wanted crazy hand wavy gestures and an IR blaster and a removable battery and an SD card slot and QI charging or Qi charging, that used to be the company that we would turn to for that kind of crazy approach. But they would dump it all into like 3 phones, not make 5 or 6 different devices. And this is where, again, kind of circling back to that comment, this is where I'm a little concerned and I don't have the highest confidence that Samsung really knows what they're selling right now. I think they're selling lifestyle and I think they're selling ecosystem, and they have those, not to the same degree that Apple does, but Samsung has those. There's a very good reason why they're the number one. It's not a gadget meritocracy that they always make the bestest phone. It's that they've got the best marketing, they've got the biggest marketing ad buys, and they do have the inroads on a consumer lifestyle conversation. But when I see S10, S10 Plus, S10e, S10 5G, and a Galaxy Fold all dropped at the same press conference, it makes me a little concerned that Samsung doesn't have a good answer for where do we go in the post-smartphone economy. The phone I'm most excited about to see, and I eventually will go hands-on with one, is the S10e. Is again,
Same here.
yeah.
Same
Is
here.
can you make an argument for a Galaxy that doesn't feel like it's gonna punish you for going cheaper in a first world market, right? In the United States, like, is that a phone I can offer up to my mom because she's still on a Galaxy S5 and she doesn't want to give that up. She doesn't want a glass back. She's a grown-up, so she likes knowing that she can replace the battery herself. It was water resistant. I mean, not the best way, but she has a little peace of mind there. And a lot of what she does on a phone is still well served, even though it's now crazy underpowered and it's not getting software updates anymore. She's a computer scientist, so she can mitigate how much risk she's willing to entertain. There hasn't been a replacement Galaxy. The closest we got, she almost flipped for a Galaxy S8 Active.
Oh.
Because she wanted a flat screen and she didn't want a glass back.
Same here. Particularly I don't like the curved screens on the Samsung flagships. I prefer a flat screen. What about you?
No, totally. I mean, it makes a lot of things easier. See, this is what's been so frustrating is, and tell me if you feel differently, but a lot of these aesthetic and design innovations that we've been seeing, they look amazing. They really do. You're curving and wrapping glass into edges with aluminum trim. I mean, this stuff is really pretty, but to me, it's increasingly less practical for how much use we really do demand out of our mobile gadgets these days. And it makes everything more difficult to manage and to support and to protect. You know, like I have a hard time finding really good screen protectors for curved screen phones. So, I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way about something like that, but I feel like we've left a conversation about practicality while the devices have gotten more expensive and they've also gotten more fragile.
Yeah, I kind of agree. So although I personally don't use screen protectors or protective cases, some people find that very odd, but yeah, that's kind of thing I
No,
like.
I used to be right there with you. In fact, where is it? So, I mean, like, I almost always have my Note 4 within reach. And this is, I think, the last phone I truly went fully naked. The phone, not me.
Thanks for the clarification there.
That's a Pornhub gadget review channel just waiting to happen. No, I used to be very vocal about, well, I'm never going to put a case on my phone. I want to talk about the durability. This is a lifestyle companion piece. If they made it this way, they intend for it to be used this way. And then the Galaxy Note 5 came out, and I had it for a week, and it was glass on glass, and it slipped. I mean, it flew out of a backpack while I was on an influencer trip in New York, where just unzipping a pocket while I was walking across a crosswalk, this thing flung itself out into the street and just destroyed. I mean, the internals liquefied. The screen went insta purple and it stopped working at all. Like, I couldn't even plug and get data off of it. And, you know, this phone has been abused like crazy. My Note 4 has been dropped, corner dropped, screen dropped. I never had anything on it, and it survived so much better than my anecdotal experiences with one Galaxy Note 5 as a successor. And from there on, now the flip side is now I care way less about aesthetics, because almost all of my gadgets are now going to be like other chunky colored gray or black or blue or some kind of case. I mean, like my OnePlus 6, I'm super stoked. I have wiener dogs on my case, right? You know, like,
Wow.
oh, that's fun. Yay, wiener dogs. But you don't get to see the crazy cool Thunder Purple, because I don't trust that any manufacturer has a truly lifestyle-capable gadget, because it's made out of glass.
Yeah, all of the new materials nowadays are like, they look good, but if you drop them, if it gets damaged in any way, well, you're in a bad shape.
And we need to have some of those. I mean, not that I want to tank your podcast here with my political ramblings, but you know, here in the United States, we're having those really difficult conversations at the state and local level about right to repair. So, you know, companies like Apple definitely want to be involved in the maintenance and repair game at the exclusion of third-party repairs or do-it-yourselfers. But if you crack the back glass on an iPhone, it's almost as expensive to replace that back glass as it is to buy a OnePlus 6T.
Yeah, I saw the price. It's exorbitant.
Yeah. So if that's the kind of conversation we're having, really what we're saying is this phone is disposable. This $1,000 phone you have is not really built to a standard of chucking it in a purse or leaving it in your car, you know, throwing it in a cup holder, the kind of casual daily interactions we might have with a gadget. And when you break it, it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars to fix. And even if you do have insurance, if you paid for Apple Care, you've already invested hundreds of dollars in a lack of confidence of that build quality, and you'll still have to pay another like $100 deductible to get that phone flipped or replaced. So that's a $300 rear glass replacement, not a $400 or $500 rear glass replacement. And that to me is is the markings of a truly unsustainable market. We should all be and I'm picking on Apple here, but it's not like other manufacturers are so much better in that regard. The one I would maybe throw a little thumbs up or kudos to would be Motorola, because they've at least been reaching out to companies like iFixit to make repair kits. But instead of making a better repair kit, how about we make the back out of the phone out of something premium, exotic, and also more durable? Why don't we reinvest in companies that might be able to pull off sapphire or diamond for the front screen? You know, there are other opportunities for us to do this, but because a Samsung or an Apple hasn't done it, then tech reviewers don't believe it's a part of the zeitgeist, and everyone just acts like it's acceptable for $1,000 phone to be made as fragile as possible. And I disagree with that.
Yeah. And
sorry, I know I completely just sidetracked. We were talking MWC, and if we want to get back to MWC, I'll try and stay better focused. I'm only through
the fun of it, of
my first cup of coffee here.
But yeah, that's the fun of having this informal discussion where you can just start anywhere and then end at another portion. That's what happened last week, when I was recording with Spec. And after recording for 2 hours, she tells me, "Oh, I forgot to record my end of conversation."
Oh, now that you say that, let me just double check. No, I am recording. You will at least have audio. I don't know if I'll be able to keep up with my side video here is coming from a OnePlus 6T, which is one of the better selfie cameras. I just didn't have time to set up something better to capture it.
So I chose Pixel 3 because it has a wide angle camera. So like, okay, well, it's comparatively closer to me, but yeah, wide angle.
I was gonna go with an LG, so I could do the rear wide angle. My V40,
but then you don't get to see,
and my V30 are not charged. And it was going to run way too hot for me to do like an hour conversation shooting video while it's trying to charge that battery. So I feel if I've got them plugged in now, but maybe I'll switch over at some point and you'll see like a sneaky camera change or something.
MWC, we were talking about Samsung devices.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me jump in just real quick though. I mean, I think we both said we're of all the phones they announced, we're both looking forward to the S10e.
Yes, that's correct.
How did you feel about the S10 announcements? That Apple made a big deal out of the iPhone 10. That was a big sea change for Apple as a manufacturer. Whether you like it or not, I've been on the record of being a bit frustrated by some of the way that they changed the iPhone 10.
Correct.
Now, Samsung just put out their 10th anniversary gadget. I mean, like, how did you feel about S10, S10 Plus? That this was their opportunity to say, like, hey, you guys have been following us for 10 years, 10 generations of Samsung phones. Could any device have really lived up to that kind of celebration or that kind of expectation?
So in my opinion, S10 is a pretty well-rounded device. The best thing is they managed to escape the notch city. That's a really good thing in my opinion, that they skipped the notch altogether and went with the hole punch display. You did get a chance to play with Honor View 20, right?
Oh yeah, I've got it right here.
Oh yeah, I just had to return it last week.
I'm supposed to be putting it in.
You have the red one.
What's that?
Oh, you have the red one. That's amazing.
It's real pretty. So I'm supposed to be sending it back this week, but I'm gonna see if I can't push them a couple extra days, because while we're talking, fingers crossed, my Nokia 9 is showing up.
Oh yeah.
And to me,
yes, I read the tweet about this.
That's one of the most exciting showdowns of the first half of 2019 is View 20 versus Nokia 9. Because I really feel like Honor and Huawei have somewhat taken up the mantle of smartphone photography like Nokia Zeiss did way back in the day. Or especially even through the Lumia years. And so now Nokia coming back with a Pureview branded product opposite the View 20's crazy awesome camera sensor. I need to do a head-to-head. I don't do a lot of head-to-heads, but that to me is like critical, that these two phones fight as hard as they can for my affection.
Yes. So I can't name names here, but someone who attended MWC, had a word with someone at HMD. So the conversation was, the camera is pretty slow right now.
Oh yeah.
Nokia 9 camera. And even with the retail software, it won't be fast.
But that's just it. Is can we have a conversation about nuance? Because if we're talking about photographic quality, right? Mm-hmm. There are few phone cameras today that can still hang with a Lumia 1020 or a Nokia 808, right?
Oh yes.
So we can accept that. It would be like saying, well, why would you buy that medium format Hasselblad when a Canon 70D has a faster burst mode? Mm-hmm. Well, why? I mean, we get stuck in this sort of accepted zeitgeist of winners or losers in YouTube reviews, and that's the wrong way to look at it. It's the wrong way to say, well, my Pixel does this one thing better, or my Pixel has night sight, so that's the winner. I mean, like, no, there's a whole spectrum of consumers out there that might care about different features, or at least if they're properly prepared with what the compromises might be, can look at that and say, well, that's an acceptable compromise to me. So what I'm really curious to see is, Honor has been going through their AI camera and their depth mapping. And so they're just going to enable a bunch of 3D depth mapping features on a crazy 48 megapixel sensor. Will a 5-sensor camera with dedicated monochrome hardware be able to outperform that photo IQ? And if that's my comparison, then the speed or the refresh rate becomes substantially less important, because I also care about getting, raw capture out of the Honor, and that's never going to be fast. It's saving a 95 megabyte raw image. Your recycle times are garbage compared to like a burst mode on a Pixel, right?
Yeah.
So again, that to me is a perfect showdown. It's why I don't want to compare this against like a Mate 20, which costs more, or I don't want to compare this against a Pixel or a Samsung, because it's also not built to fight on that playing field. But there are two companies having a very nuanced conversation about photography quality, and they are Nokia and they are Huawei Honor.
Light. Oh yeah.
No, but Leica and Zeiss. Yeah. No, I mean, so if I saw like an LG with a Nikon partnership or a Nikkor glass partnership, that would be a different conversation than the production capabilities of an LG phone. Like the V series is still one of my go-tos for video production, because they are the only ones giving me as granular tools for better video. But they aren't having the same kind of conversation about photo IQ that Huawei is.
Correct.
So again, these are all little nuanced differences, but if you go, oh, but the Pixel has night sight, then you've completely missed a huge chunk of the population that might actually care about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Plus, I would have much preferred if the Nokia 9 had Snapdragon 855. So, but from what I know, they were too late into the production, so they had to stick with 845.
I mean,
which is fine.
I
845
think,
isn't bad. It's pretty nice.
I mean, let's be frank. I think most people would still be fine on a Qualcomm 820 if they were getting better software updates and there was better optimization, software hardware optimization for that. Really think about what it is you do on your phone. We've got a lot of people that stomp around and claim they need the best, but what are you doing? I mean, one of the things I'm trying to get
gaming.
Well, but that's just it. Is like what I'm trying to get people to do is get more use out of their phones. Like when I do like a vlogging series, it's not that I just shot a video from a phone. It's I covered all of my vlogs in Vegas from a V40, shooting everything, recording all of the audio directly to that video, using the audio controls on the V40, editing, rendering, uploading, thumbnailing, everything was done from the phone. I brought a laptop. I didn't open it for a week because everything was done from the phone. I want to be that outlier so that people will see if I plug in a Samsung with DeX, there is legitimately a good use case argument for this replacing a low-level desktop. Or same thing with an Honor or a Huawei with their desktop mode. You can do that now. So now we need to have a better infrastructure, better support, better accessories for that kind of use. When people, walk around and say, like, oh, if it had this or if it had that, I find those arguments to be completely specious. Like, oh, well, I would buy this if it were exactly like my favorite flagship and it had better specs and it cost half the price. Then I would totally leave Samsung. You're like, well, that's not how this market works. You actually need to look at what it is that these products are truly capable of. And I pull out any phone with a Snapdragon 835. It's still rocking today. People like to make this argument about gaming, but if you're really into gaming, then you should be looking at devices that have better thermal management. It's not necessarily the chipset. I mean, you can do fine on a Poco phone or a OnePlus. Those phones game well. But if you're really into gaming, and also the whole gaming infrastructure, like you want to share your gaming with a community, you really want to be a part of that, then a phone like the Razr or the ROG or the Note 9 really need to be on your list, because they will help you do more over a longer period of time with better hardware designed to get heat out of your device as efficiently as possible. Again, that requires nuance. But if you watch a Razr phone review, it's, oh, the phone felt kind of warm to the touch. Yeah, by design, it's getting the heat out of your phone. You're going to feel that. That is such a stupid con to have if you're not explaining why. Because if an iPhone felt that hot to the touch, then you would know you were just cooking the internals, because there is nothing special helping you with that thermal management. So again, sorry, not to like sit here and like defend the Nokia 9. I am definitely trying to rein in my fanboy over the Nokia label, but it's coming in at a comparable price to a OnePlus 6T. That's still on sale today with the Qualcomm.
That was surprising. I was really not expecting it to be priced at that.
And we know there are going to be some obvious compromises. I'm super cranky about there not being a headphone jack. That to me is almost a deal breaker if these cameras just turn out to be okay. But we also have some other things too, like a 1440p OLED with an in-display fingerprint sensor. There are very few devices coming out with that combination outside of Samsung. Now, obviously, it doesn't have the same ultrasonic, blah, 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 blah. But we're talking about, I think, a well-targeted, well-built product to meet a certain price threshold, and that it was held at this tier until they had the tech pieces in place for something like an optical under-display fingerprint sensor. Like, I think that was the last bit. This phone could have come out 2 years ago if they'd had some kind of solution for not having a rear-mounted fingerprint sensor.
Plus, did you notice that the fingerprint sensing area is pretty high up in the display? It was almost in the middle. That was kind of weird.
I hope it's larger. Like, the position to me makes sense. I want more things happening in the middle of a display where my hand might more naturally, as opposed to always having to do everything on a tall, skinny device pulling to the bottom. Like, it's one of the things I hate about gestures right now. Is everything pulls to this teeny little bottom edge for a swipe where you're barely able to hold on to it, and you're going to fling the phone out of your hands. I mean, what's hilarious, I only have the regular 10S. I don't have the 10S Max, but I actually really like keeping it in a ridiculously large battery case just so I get a chin again, and I have more room to hold the phone. It's just so silly, but that's kind of a concern. An ergonomic concern that I don't think a lot of manufacturers have addressed.
Okay, so what I'm looking forward to is like the day when the 1/3 of the display will be totally for fingerprint sensing, and you could just place your finger anywhere and it'll just sense, which is there on the first generation prototype Vivo Apex.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I wonder why didn't they bring it to production version, because I guess it was too expensive.
I mean, that would be my guess, right? I mean, think about what you need to scan optically or with other types of ultrasonic sensors. I mean, I don't have component pricing on stuff like that, but I would have to imagine that these early generations of products, and also incorporating that with certain types of displays, becomes cost prohibitive to a certain degree. I mean, it's also the same token, people starting to point out things like the S10 ultrasonic sensor is offset, where it's not perfectly centered. So, you know, when you look at things like that to me definitely speaks to it costs, 3 cents more to make this field a little bit larger. It costs 5 cents more to redesign part of the logic board so we can center this. It might cost 15 cents more per unit to make the field, a full bottom third. I think this is going to be an awkward transition year, because I'm also hoping that within the next 2 years, we're not really holding phones like this anymore. Like, by the time we solve these problems, I hope we just don't have them at all anymore.
You want like a virtual interface in your eyes or something?
Well,
something in terms with Iron Man or stuff.
So I hope we see that continuation of where we left off with smartwatches. Like, I think smartwatches will prove to be an evolutionary dead end as a product I wear on my wrist, but I hope they birth a future of peeling services back off into a full personal area network where think about how many times you waste time just referencing the phone for little bits of at-a-glance information that are not mission critical, that you don't need to reply to in that moment, that you don't need to respond to. So we keep accepting that, oh, well, my phone made a beep or a buzz and now I've got to look at it. But your phones are actually really terrible at notifications. Your phones are actually really bad at that, especially in this new era where we all have, it's not just email and texts. It's tons of these services that are trying to get our attention now. So we have an attention problem, a huge one, with how we use these things. And I got to try on the North glasses. It's a little Pico projector that blasts out to a screen, and it's focused in a way where the image floats like almost 2 meters out in front of you. So it's not that you look up and you're pulling your vision in. It would be like if we're having a conversation face to face at a little bit more than arm's length, my notification is sort of floating out where your face would be, right? So, the little like moments where you're not because we don't make eye contact while we have conversations the entire time because this would be super awkward. It's really easy to hide that momentary glance, like, I don't need to respond to that, or, oh, that's not mission critical, or, oh, that's a text from my wife. Can you excuse me for just 1 second? I just need to reply to this. That to me eliminates so much extraneous phone usage. And then I want to combine that with better audio capabilities. We're all rushing to these like wireless buds, or I really like bone conduction headphones. We have these smart assistants that aren't that smart. And I really want, not like the AI from the movie Her, but before they go to the AI, they have a mostly audio-based interaction system. And I'd like to have a little bit more of that. Also, those are things that would help for accessibility usage, but bring that into mainstream use. Don't make that the default for someone who's, visually impaired. Combine that with sensors in our clothing, sensors in our shoes, data collection in our pants. I want a chest strap built into a workout shirt for better heart rate tracking. I mean, there are so many things we can just pull off of the phone. I think we're always going to need some glowing rectangle visual interfacing device, but I want to use it less. I want this to be less of my experience with other people in the world around me. And I want to move on to more organically embedding these experiences into the world around me. It doesn't have to be Terminator Vision AR. I mean, there's so much we can do with simple wireframe icons, text. I don't need to draw the map on my car windshield for turn-by-turn navigation, but just give me an arrow when it's time to make a turn at eye level, so I don't have to pull my eyes off the road or look at like my phone in my lap or something like that, and potentially risk an accident because that information isn't accessible. That's a very long-winded way. I'm kind of pointing back to my concerns at MWC is I still haven't seen manufacturers joining that conversation, and everyone's nervous too, because you still want to make a profit off of the current phone paradigm. You don't want to risk too much in R&D and manufacturing if something doesn't sell. Tech reviewers and tech geeks are the worst right now, where if you do something truly different, you will get savaged by this community for years until it becomes a generally accepted idea, and then everyone knew that it was a great idea. It just wasn't ready yet. And that kind of nonsense. So everyone's playing really conservative, but whoever takes that step first is going to define the next 10 years of gadgets and data services. So it's in every company's best interest to have a plan and to try and have some path, some product roadmap to getting us out of smartphone only. And there now I'm happy with wealth extraction, right? Sell me some great goggles that let me keep my eyes on the road. Sell me some cool clothes or jackets with sensors built into them. Sell me add-ons for my shoes. I'm a first world privileged gadget enthusiast. So I'm ready to throw my money at that. I am not ready to throw my money at making my smartphone screen even bigger, because that doesn't solve any of the problems that I've got right now.
Yeah. So, do you agree with the statement? If the Honor View 20 was smaller, it would have been much better. Like, it's fine that it has a hole punch display, but had it been smaller, around 5.5 inches, it would have been like much more handy and better.
I don't know, because this isn't their first. Because what? It's roughly the same size. Hold on, do I have it? Yeah, I mean,
Honor View 20 is like 6.7 inches.
but
if
it's
I recall
roughly the
correctly.
same size as the View 10, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, this is kind of the second year where they've strayed from. We're just gonna go through all my phones. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I unfortunately I had to give the Honor 8 back to Pocket now, and that actually made me kind of cry a little bit. But I do have an Honor 9, and so I mean you can kind of see just like the dimensions and how much smaller. I mean, that's actually out of focus. I'll put it back here back.
That's fine.
So I prefer this size and smaller. I really wish more phones were coming out in like Xperia XZ1 compact territory or iPhone SE territory.
I love those. So that's the reason why I'm using Pixel 3, because I love the size.
Yeah. I mean, the closest we get
perfect.
to a true small form factor premium phone these days. And I could go smaller. I really could. It's very curious. I think Honor's market data is probably pointing them towards a growing. This is totally my speculation. Obviously, I have no data to back this up. But my hypothesis would be their market research is pointing them towards people who might make up a significant demographic of folks who only have one computing device, period.
That's interesting.
And if you only have one computing device, period, it's got to be an all-rounder multimedia device, communications device, and potentially a replacement desktop in ways that a smaller phone might have more difficulty achieving for a larger number of people. So that's my guess. And I think it'll be curious to see over it. Because, I mean, it's even things like the Honor, moving from the View 10 to the View 20, incorporating proper USB 3 support for HDMI out, Ethernet in, multiple USB inputs and outputs. I can plug it into one of those laptop docks, one of those USB laptop docks. It's really for a MacBook, and use it as a full-fledged computer with one USB cable. And then it's connected to a monitor. It's connected to my router over an Ethernet cable. I can pop in my camera SD card. I've got 2 USB ports ready to go. I've got a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, and it just, bam, it's a desktop. It's ready to go. And it's doing that at €600. Like, that's impressive.
That's amazing.
So then when I'm on the go, if I want to have that better multimedia experience, if I want a little bit more real estate for writing, because I really did. I started doing this with my Mate 9, where I would just bring a little Microsoft folding Bluetooth keyboard, and I was writing my scripts on airplanes. I don't want to pull out a laptop. It's such a pain if someone has to get up and go to the bathroom. You've got like a 14-inch gaming laptop, and you're trying to get out of their way, versus a phone and a folding Bluetooth keyboard, and go flick, and I just pick it up, and I move, and then I sit back down, and I go plop, and then I'm writing again. I mean, it's so much more convenient. I think Honor as a brand is probably looking at more that kind of Venn diagram overlapping in a way that Samsung used to. And I hope that Samsung gets back to with phones like the S10e. But that's, again, I have no insight to know if that's really their design or not.
And now they're like flooding the market with the A and the M series. So it's the M10, M20, M30, then A50 and all.
Yeah, again,
it's pretty interesting.
I don't think they've got I like that they're paying attention to those demographics. So first of all, I think Samsung deserves credit that they're circling back and really trying to find good solutions in the mid-range. They recently put out what was before, I think it was just after the Note launch last year, that they were really going to be looking at using their mid-ranger phones to launch new technologies before they were going to be adopted on S-series phones.
Yes.
But
they started with the A series, the original A series, when it was called Samsung Alpha.
Yeah.
So if you remember, Alpha had the metal rim before it came out for
the Alpha
S6.
was the baby Note 4, and I still think that is one of the best phones Samsung has ever made.
Yeah, it was small and compact.
My dad rocked that phone. He only got rid of it the beginning of last year. So again, my parents
wow.
they treat their phones like their cars, man. It's like, we bought this phone and now I'm going to run it into the ground. I'm going to get as much use out of this as I can. But since he got a Pixel 2, and then that phone, he destroyed that phone, and now he's on a Galaxy S8, and I don't think that phone is doing well either. Neither of those phones have held up nearly as well as his Galaxy Alpha did.
The wonders of glass, I must say.
Right? It's super disappointing. But no, I'm sorry, to your sort of initial comment there too, is the thing that makes me a little nervous is they're not approaching it with a design. They're approaching it with a shotgun approach. They're throwing a ton of stuff out there, and now they're collecting the data to see what sticks. And I get that. They have the resources to do that. But I also worry for the people who are taking Samsung at their word, that are going with Samsung on this experiment, because I don't believe those are the consumers who will be treated well over time. Samsung already doesn't have the best reputation for updates and support. And they're banking on their reputation as the #1 manufacturer. But increasingly, I feel those are the consumers who are left further and further behind. The people who are already a little vulnerable in the market are the people who tend to be left out the most. They're the people who tend to be abused the most. Oh, you couldn't spend $1,000 on a phone? Well, okay, when bugs crop up or when security exploits happen, tough luck. You're on your own.
Tough luck.
And that's not okay, which is why I'm also really excited for Nokia to be kind of coming back to the USA the way they are. I need a few more options to recommend to people, and if they really do embrace Android One, then it's a lot safer to go with a $300, $400, $500 phone if we can count on more reasonable software support.
I wish more OEMs join the Android One bandwagon so that we can have Play Edition phones all over again.
Yeah,
Samsung's hardware is really nice, and if they have an Android One Edition phone, that would be really awesome. I would buy one.
The problem is convincing a manufacturer to make that leap and then not gimp the phone. The roller coaster ride of emotions when LG announced that they were going to put out a G7 One Edition, but then it was an older chipset, less RAM, less storage, only one camera. It was like they gimped that phone, and that's really a shame, because that, I think, would have gone a long way towards reconciling my biggest problem with LG, where I absolutely adore LG hardware. I think they're doing some of the coolest stuff when it comes to audio tech and camera controls. I think really there is no solution like an LG for multimedia and content creation, and a high quality audio. If you have nice headphones and you don't have an LG, you're doing your ears a disservice. But that comes with the flip side of some of the worst long-term software support. And if you could give me an LG G7, the exact same hardware as what you'd get from the Project Fi. If you buy an LG G7 for Google Fi, give me that hardware but make it Android One, and then give me an app to install for boombox mode and an app to install for their camera. You can still build this stuff in there. That to me would go a long ways towards putting all those pieces together. Then I would have my cake and I'd be able to eat it too. Right now they are probably crunching numbers where, I don't know, we could get a little bit more money here, or we have a branded experience that our customers seem to enjoy over there. And I don't really think most consumers care that much. If they cared that much, Samsung wouldn't be the top manufacturer.
And things are changing pretty quickly. In India, Xiaomi has overtaken Apple and Samsung.
Yeah.
And now they're on the top. They're #1 right now. So have you had a chance to play with Xiaomi devices except for Pocophone?
Well, I haven't been able to play with a Pocophone.
Oh, okay. The way you mentioned, I thought you have used it.
No. I've had lots of people yelling at me that I missed out on not spending more time with a Pocophone, but it got caught up in the end of the October coverage cycle in a way where I just never got back to it. And right now, when I'm cutting a smartphone review, I'm kind of taking a page out of Erica Griffin's playbook. I'm done doing this let me do a 24 hours review, and then let me do a 1 week review, and then let me do an extended hands-on, and then let me just use the phone, and I'll talk about the phone when I know what I'm talking about, rather than trying to chase some kind of YouTube SEO. Unfortunately for me and my work schedule, that means it might take me a month to chew through a phone and really feel like I know what I'm doing. And when we've got like 6 phone announcements at the end of 2018 all stacked on top of each other, I made the wrong decision. I fully admit it. I made the wrong decision in ignoring the Poco. I really should have spent more time with it. But for all the other Xiaomis that I've spent time with, that is also, I really wish that they would entertain some notion of unlocked sales here in the USA, where their strategy of services works really well in other markets. It would be a tough slog here because you would probably have to charge more for the same phone here in the United States. But I think even affixing a premium for a proper USA-focused device and a warranty service, all of the proper support. It's like I can import any phone, but I can't recommend any phone that really you can't support or get fixed or have a warranty for. I can't philosophically do that to people. It's a great phone. You should import it. And then if it breaks, you're screwed. Smash that bell icon.
Yeah.
That's not okay. But when I see like the inroads they've made in Latin America, that is such a huge label to be fighting in South America and Mexico. And that's why I want more. I was so stoked to have OnePlus in T-Mobile stores. Like, we want that competition. We need that competition. And we need to also show people that you can have a truly premium experience. $300 to $400? Yeah, you want to get something fancy, you can bump it up to $5 or $6. And you're still, it would be very difficult in daily operation to discern the differences between that and $1,000 smartphone.
Yeah. So did you check out the Redmi Note 7 and the 7 Pro, which was launched like literally last week?
So yeah, I mean, I've read up on the announcements for it. Yeah, I mean, again, that looks like another monster player. It looks like another monster performer. And back when I was at Pocket Now, that was one of the happiest moments, was getting to review one of the Xiaomi Notes. Like, I finally got my hands on one of these things, and it wasn't just like another Oppo selfie camera phone. It was like, oh, this thing's got some meat. This thing's got some teeth to it. Yes. And I really liked spending some time with it. That is a perfect example of smart compromises. I mean, again, it's not like anyone really truly has a no compromise phone. Like, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, everything has its own pros and cons.
But I think they've made some very smart decisions in balancing feature set for a specific bang for buck. And I mean, the sense I get in reading through international community conversations on phones like that is they have deservedly built up a fan base around that product because of the way that they've iterated, improved, and then supported. And that to me is way more important than just like, we got a phone and it's got a Qualcomm 855 and you can buy it for $300, but you'll never hear from us ever again. Goodbye.
Yeah, true. Okay, so let's switch gears for a minute.
For sure. Let's
talk about foldables. So starting with, so out of all...
I know, you totally want to talk about the LG V50. I can feel it. That's the foldable for you. Totally sorry, that was a terrible joke.
So starting with all the foldables you saw at CES and then at WC, which one stands out the most for you?
So the big caveat is I think foldable phones are a terrible idea. Now that I've said that, the one that I'm gravitating towards the most is the Mate X.
Wise choice.
Well, thank you, sir. I too also think you're pretty sharp crayon yourself. I don't know where I was. I couldn't stick the landing. No, this is hilarious. The main reason why I want to go Mate X, I would probably almost never unfold that phone. I want a dual screen device where the only cameras are the rear high quality cameras. My screen is not molested in any way for a selfie camera because selfie cameras are terrible. And all of my video calling and selfies are taken from the best cameras on the device with a way to compose that image. Because right now, I shoot almost everything from the rear cameras on my phone, and I just practice a lot to shoot blind so that the screen is out, but I'm using the rear cameras. So like when I shoot in Vegas and I'm shooting on an LG, one of the reasons why I stuck with LG for so long is the wide angle camera, you can just shoot wherever. It's so wide, you don't need to worry
It'll
about
definitely get you in the frame.
if you're exactly. You don't have to worry about composing your frame. You're just like, I don't know, I'll flip it over there and look, there's the the Vegas skyline, and how cool is that? And now I can go back to talking to you and it doesn't matter where I'm at. And that's huge. I can shoot a super high quality 4K ultra wide video and I don't have to worry about composing it. But if I had a screen on the back of my LG that I could use to set up that shot, well, the main camera sensor is actually a little bit nicer and has better low light capabilities. It's better autofocus, better image stabilization.
Yeah.
Like that would be a nice improvement, but I can't trust that camera sensor if I'm shooting blind. And the Huawei hugely solves that in only having that one strip of cameras and then using the extension of the screen as your composition window for setting that up. So that to me is really the biggest selling point. I really hope the Galaxy Fold will offer something similar, where you open the phone up and you use the tiny little crappy display as your composition window, and then you can still use the really nice cameras to take your selfies or do your video calls. To me, it's a no-brainer. But they put 6 cameras on that thing. And you're like, that's so unnecessary.
Unnecessary indeed. So that's somewhat the same approach with Vivo Next second generation took, which has the dual display.
Well, the first time
that was pretty interesting.
The first time I went hands-on was with the Nubia X.
Okay.
And I'm still mad at their PR. Like, I went to the Nubia booth. Sorry, I've told this story on my podcast too, so I'm totally repeating myself here. But I went to the Nubia booth at CES. It was like the last day I was there. So it was like Thursday, and everyone at CES is just dead on Thursdays by the time you make it to Thursday. And I'm chatting up their PR rep, and he has zero interest in talking to me. Like, none at all. And so I'm telling you, like, I know I'd love to do this. Oh, well, we're not going to ship it to the United States, so we can't send you one. I mean, like, I don't want to review the phone. What I want to do is talk about this as being the most viable solution for not having a notch and improving your selfie and vlogging quality. Yeah, I just don't, I don't see how that kind of conversation could work. And so I show him my V40 where I've got like video editing timelines on that phone. And we're not talking like iMovie. We're talking like multiple layers, graphics, inserts, transitions, 3 layers, music bed, voiceover bed, audio from the video files. And as I'm scrubbing through, I scrub past a little clip that I shot with Enabong from Board at Work and with Super Saf. They were all walking the floor together. And he stops me and like, oh, wait a minute, who's that? And I go, oh, that's my buddy, Enabong. And and that's Saf with him. He's like, you know Super Saf? And now all of a sudden I'm worth talking to. So I have like a 2-second clip of video where Saf's in the background, like waving. And so I send them an email and they're like, yeah, but we just don't have any plans on releasing in North America, so we can't send you one. That's so dumb. Oh, only 30% of my audience lives in North America, you dork. Sorry. Yeah. Very long-winded way of saying yes, like the Vivo.
Well. So, talking about foldables, do you like an innie or an outie? So that's the term which everyone is using. So you like the screens on the outside or the inside?
Again, with the caveat that I think both are terrible. I like the execution of the Mate X better. It's less complicated. It's a much higher screen to body ratio, no notches on your tablet side. But I don't think either really have solved the durability issues. So obviously they can't be made out of brittle or scratch resistant materials because they have to be able to bend. Hinges are going to be terrible for any type of drop, regardless of whether it folds in or out. And I still don't think that Samsung, like if you look at some of the user generated shots of the Fold at MWC, even though they don't close flush, there is a gap, sort of like a Surface Book gap when you close the Galaxy Fold. It still looks like that plastic starts to like bend or crease. So neither really solves the issues I have with a mainline daily use lifestyle companion gadget. But so far, the closer one I think to the actual better solution would be the Mate 10, folding out, one display, cutting back on the operation. You don't have to have anything fancy to tell the phone, oh, well, now that you've unfolded it, you've got to go from one screen to this other screen. Oh, where you're on this screen, you're going to use this camera, not that camera. Like, that stuff just seems so cumbersome to me. And the main use of a phone, you have the full display on the Mate 10. You have a dinky little window porthole display on the Fold. And I know that can be solved by eventually putting on a more expensive front display, but that to me just, again, seems like an obvious compromise to hit a sub $2,000 price point. And I'd rather just go with the thing that's more recognizable as a phone when it's closed and as a tablet when it's open than jumping through hoops to look at all of these different displays, aspect ratios, form factors. I really think that Samsung's solution is clumsy here.
Yeah, and even if you like compare them side by side, it looks like a generation leap between them. Like, Samsung Fold got outdated in 4 days.
Well, I know, it was like in literally 1 week. But again, that's what's kind of exciting is we've been having these conversations. Like, Huawei has not been generating the most positive buzz when it comes to things like intellectual property.
Correct.
And I loved seeing in my Twitter feed, people complaining like, oh yeah, like Samsung put out a folding phone and Huawei like copied them like 4 days later. Like they made a phone in 4 days. That's part of the conversation that people are having in this sort of informed but not really informed tech conversation. Because here we've got, it's like Volcano versus Dante's Peak or Ants versus A Bug's Life. We have two companies. They both made a folding phone, and that's where the similarities stop, is that they have screens that bend. Yeah. So now what I really want to see is a flip phone, is like an old a Moto Razr. That there were the rumors about that.
That would be the best reincarnation or the best remake.
I want that so bad. So, I mean, if you're going to give me tall, skinny devices, like, I would be cool with a 2-screen solution. Or, I mean, if you could fold it outside, too. I mean, that might be a little funky. But, make it a little bit taller and skinnier than something. I'm holding up a View 20 here. Make it a little taller and skinnier, but then when it closes, I've got like an iPhone SE sized little square that I can do everything from.
That'd be really nice.
I would be all over
Sony
that.
kind of half-heartedly executed that with the Xperia 1.
That was adorable for you to say half-heartedly.
It kind of resembles the iPhone 20 memes. You remember those?
Yeah.
Which are like a lightsaber.
Exactly.
When the iPhone 6 came out, everybody's like, oh, they're just going taller and taller.
But I mean, like, TCL showed off their Dragon Hinge. Like they have a prototype device that kind of fits that bill. We know Motorola has been working on folding displays. Actually, I mean, I think Motorola showed off some of the first outside of LG Display for this type of bendy screen tech. They just, they let Samsung dictate the course of this market when they could have been out there ahead of it. That to me, I think, could be a better solution for. There's not often that I really need this display on the go. I just need a reference, quick action, interaction, reply to a text, punch out a tweet, shoot a quick photo, and I could do fine for most of that with an iPhone SE sized screen. And then when I want to sit and use both hands and dig into something a little bit more, I could open that out. Now I've got my 6-inch phablet screen ready to do that. That to me would be a bit more compelling and hopefully a little bit more durable solution for a folding screen device.
So talking about bendy screens, did you check out the ZTE Nubia Alpha, the gauntlet-style watch smartphone thingy? That's hideous.
I've only seen it. I mean, like I haven't been anywhere near it close enough to like manhandle that or look at it in person. But again, yeah, from the photos, that seems like the first baby step towards creating a science fiction-y gadget. I know people always talk about things like, I want to be able to unscroll a display, kind of like what was that? One of the Mars movies. It was a Mission to Mars, or was it Red Planet? I can't remember. But they had these sort of semi-transparent, scrolling, unrolling tablets, and that is like that's the worst solution. It's floppy. It's not rigid.
Yes.
You can kind of see through it, but you kind of can't, which means light transmission is terrible unless you're in optimal conditions. And you can't really hold it in one hand because as soon as you do, the whole thing just goes waka 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 waka. No one wants that. That's terrible. Don't do that. We can make it like a snap bracelet. You're like, no, you can't. and it's the same thing, like when I love watching The Expanse, but if we're hundreds of years in the future and we're still holding a rectangle, hundreds of years in the future, I don't care if the rectangle is transparent or has like a holographic pop-out display Nintendo style. If we're still doing that, then we have failed as a species. Like we deserve extinction. True. If 200 years from now we're still like, oh, let me hold this brick.
No, we'd be like drawing hand animations and all in the sky and controlling UIs and whatnot.
I'm even willing to go with lazy people. Awesome. Like if I have to use my hands 200 years in the future, maybe that's a failure. Like everything is just brain power, and I'm ready now. I mean, give me like a 1/4-inch jack, or like RoboCop style, like some sort of like spike data port, chink, and then just plug it in, and then let me just communicate through some sort of direct neural interface, and I never have to like touch or handle or pick up something ever again. But even Minority Report feels kind of clumsy. Like I'm a little nervous for as much as I love LG hardware, that the whole idea of like palm scanning or air gestures or things. We've tried some of these things in the past. If it's not super well polished, then I think this is going to be something that a lot of reviewers are going to be like, oh, it's a gimmick and it's terrible. You shouldn't buy this phone.
Remember Samsung Galaxy S3 had that palm gestures? S3 was the phone with all kinds of gestures.
Totally.
You could enable everything. Smart Stay, scrolling thing, the wave to change the music track and all. Ooh, it had a lot of gestures.
And so, I mean, like, a lot of that was too ahead of its time, right? I mean, like, yes. I think a lot of people would say that that's totally fair. But now look at where we're at with augmented reality, VR headsets that are now starting to do eyeball tracking, HoloLens 2 talking about positions where it's not that you hold a controller, it's that it literally scans your hand to be the cursor, the interactive element that incorporates into software, and that it follows your eye, it follows your vision. So, I mean, we're there. We need to start incorporating some of this stuff into consumer-facing gadgets and see what works and what doesn't. But, you know, that to me is, again, that's an incorporation point that will be a clumsy missing link to when we have better direct connection with our consumer electronics. So, you know, I have my phone and it's propped up and I'm cooking. So that's a perfect example. I'm in the kitchen, I'm cooking, and I want to do something on my phone and I can kind of wave my hands around in the air. But I'm never going to want to wave my hands in the air for normal day-to-day interactions, because that's way worse than just picking the phone up and doing something on the screen.
So here's an interesting perspective. So last week, like I mentioned, I was having a word with Spec. She mentioned like how it can be really useful for those people who have disabilities.
Totally.
So yeah, this acts as a really nice way to make it more accessible to other people, so that they can interact with the phone in a much better manner.
That's true. The thing
is that more developers need to work out how to incorporate these in a much more friendly manner. Like, okay, it's fine that you can turn the knob and change the volume, but how about making it more accessible?
Well,
more UI elements.
I'm trying to be I'm trying to be very precious with my reply here, because this is a topic that I feel is not really addressed, but manufacturers love to play lip service to supporting these different communities of people. I feel if we built products with accessibility use in mind first, and then released them for everybody, that everyone would see an improvement from that kind of design or that kind of interaction. But when I look at some of these types of hands-off solutions, they usually require more attention, more finesse, and more nuance than the currently accepted way that we use our gadgets. Like what you just did there. I'm going to turn the volume, so I'm going to hold my arm up while my phone is standing or propped up in some specific way to see me. And then I'm going to make a very specific dialing gesture. There are some people with accessibility concerns where that will be a tremendous benefit. I think there will be many more people with accessibility concerns where that's going to be a very infuriating combination of supporting the gadget, propping it up, pointing it at you in a specific way, and then operating it in a very nuanced and specific way that's actually going to put them farther away. Like it's actually going to be more difficult to use that gadget in that way for that one specific usage than if we were really living up to the expectations and the claims for things like voice assistants, or for things like...
I was about to bring that up. Like, it's really nice how voice assistants are getting more and more intelligent and more accessible.
Right, but I mean, try and cover the basics. Like, tell your phone to dim the screen, and like, how does it do it? You know, can you say, Shmoke Booble, set my screen brightness to 25%. Oh my gosh, one of my phones actually did just turn on.
Wow.
See, that's not a very smart assistant.
Yeah.
No, but you know, something like that where actually let me see. Hold on. What phone do I have? Let's see if this even works. I don't know if I've set this up on... Come on, go back home. Set screen brightness to 50%.
Does it work?
It did it. Okay. I'll say kudos Google Assistant, because I was totally expecting that to fail. When I went through and I did, I was reviewing a Bluetooth headphone that had pre-built like play, pause, skip commands so that you didn't have to go through Assistant for that, and it worked really, really well. And then you would go to try and change the volume, and you would have to open the Assistant, give it the command, and it would move it like one notch. And you're like, that's not helpful at all, Google Assistant. And you would try different permutations of like set volume to 25% or set volume to level 7, or you know, like anything that you could, and it would just like it wouldn't do anything but like move the volume one click in either direction. Those things to me, I think, would go a lot longer if we were working on consistent and a unified design idea of interaction. So if you pick up an iPhone, it's similar voice commands on an iPhone as it would be on an Android device, or you know, the myriad number of Google devices. If I pick up an LG and I give it voice commands for volume, that's going to be terrible if it only works the way that it works on a Samsung. So on a Samsung, I have 20 volume steps. On an LG, I've got 75. Do you want to give your volume command 17 times to get to the right level? But that at least gave me a little bit of hope when I can pick up an Honor View 20 and tell it exactly what screen brightness to go to, and it does it. That to me is way better. And why I'm more excited about things like Microsoft with their accessibility controller, modular, designable, you can custom fit it to the individual with their specific needs or concerns. And that still actually could be an interesting controller for someone more able-bodied to play with. Probably not the most straightforward way to game, but you could. And you could share that experience with someone in your family.
Yeah, it was a nice attempt by the Xbox team.
Oh, huge props. I mean, like, I think Microsoft did something really special there. And I wish our phone manufacturers were looking at the software equivalents for that on our mobile devices too.
Okay, so let's switch to non-bendy smartphones. What do you think about the THICC BOI Energy Power Max P18K Pop? Oh my god, that name.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But yeah.
Seeing as how I'm recording my video right now on a OnePlus 6T and a Zero Lemon case, I'm all for it. I mean, like, I was actually a little nervous. I had to look up TSA guidelines. Like, can I even bring this thing on an airplane? The battery is so large, but I think
if you're within the range of 20,000 mAh, you're good.
Yeah. I mean, but I had to look it up. Like, I honestly didn't know, and I would have thought that would have been hilarious if they'd made a phone that you couldn't bring on an airplane. No, I like it when smartphones get weird, and I like it when we see you're going to complain about battery life, and you say that you're fine with a thicker gadget. Well, here's a company that just went and took that to the extreme. So it obviously shouldn't be a considered solution for general consumers. Like, no one's making any argument that if you were seriously shopping an iPhone XR, you get this phone instead. But I want those options for consumers that genuinely want to have some kind of crazy long life battery runtime solution. And I want, the same way, I want BlackBerry phones to succeed because I want people who like keyboards to have keyboards. I want LG to succeed because people who care about their ears should have good options for awesome high quality audio. I mean, things like that. If we only boil everything down to what is Apple doing or what is Samsung doing, then we miss some glorious and sometimes silly solutions. But this to me is a gloriously silly solution, and I'm just glad it exists. I doubt I'll spend any time with it. But it's like my world is happier and shinier just for the fact that it's a thing that someone might buy. And maybe they'll hate it or maybe they'll love it, but I want more of that and less of, well, we've all agreed that this is the only way that you can make a phone, and our SEO only works on YouTube if it's a OnePlus, a Pixel, or a Galaxy. You're like, okay, cool. That's really boring.
So, talking about, smartphone camera capabilities and all, have you tried the Moment camera app, which provides you pro modes on photo mode and the video mode?
So it
recently got updated for Android.
I was going to say, it just got to Android. So no, I haven't. This last month, I've been trying to wrap up camera testing on the Razer Phone 2 and the View 20. And the Razer Phone 2 convinced me that I need to spend more time talking about third-party camera apps. So after I go pick up my Nokia 9, I do want to kind of dig into what that app has to offer, because I still haven't found anything that really matches the granular control of photography from Huawei and the granular control of video and audio from LG. And if Moment can get us close, then I think so many more Android phones will have greater potential for some really interesting content creation. And I really want to play with that cinema lens that Moment has to see if
the anamorphic lens is so nice.
It's a really interesting idea, right? Like,
yes,
I like wide angle, and you can kind of crop in and create sort of a bold look with that. But if you want your J.J. Abrams lens flares and you really want that sort of cinema feel, I like that. Again, most people aren't really going to gravitate towards this as a solution. I need that to really exist, though. I need these products to really be out there for people who are interested. I'm shocked that a company like Red missed the boat on offering something similar. Now, Moment's here, and I feel like that's something that really needs to be talked about more so that people can see your $1,000 smartphone purchase is way more capable than just shaving a millisecond off of opening up Facebook. Like, you can do more. And that's really all you, because I don't want to besmirch the person that texts, emails, and checks social media, and that's all they do from their phone, but they don't need to spend $1,000 on that. That's a consumer that could be saving some money or putting, those purchases towards better use. But we don't really position that for them. So I'm very curious to give it a shot, but I haven't spent any time with it at present. While we're talking, I'll fire it up right now, and then I'll give you a full review.
So the day it was announced, I was like very interested in buying the app. Then I found out like the video granular controls are not available for Android. So I'm like, okay, the day it launches, I'll buy it. And I'm yet to buy it. I'm like, okay, now that I bought it up, I'll have to buy it and then use it. Because like the camera on Pixel 3 is nice, but the stock camera app is really limited.
Oh, yeah.
So like, okay, yeah.
Well, and that's kind of the funny thing, too, is I say funny. One of the really frustrating things about talking about a phone like the Pixel is, again, trying to drop this conversation into a lowest common denominator where an oversight or a con on one phone is a total deal breaker. You need to have the best. You need to have the best camera. You need to have the best this, have the best that. That one phone doesn't have this one thing, and I can't live without it, so that total deal breaker. And then you'll see the exact same conversation happen with a Pixel. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, the Pixel audio is terrible. The camera hardware really isn't exceptional. Still has some problems with lens flare. Video capture is kind of terrible, especially in lower light conditions where that software crop gets real fuzzy. But you get used to those things. Those aren't deal breakers on a Pixel, because that's different. And that to me is a wholly disingenuous way to have those kinds of conversations. Again, the Pixel's a fine phone, but it's a software platform. Well, you know what you can do is you can pull some of that software off of the phone. Like the Pixel camera app on a Razer Phone 2 works a trick. Anyone complaining about like...
Even on the 60.
Right. I mean, it's like there are solutions to that. But you know what I can't fix is the bathtub notch on a Pixel XL. I can't fix the terrible microphones for video recording on a Pixel 3. I can't increase the frame rate if I wanted like an Asus ROG phone because it has a 90 hertz refresh rate screen. Well, I can't get that through an app on my Pixel. Yeah. And that's why these different categories need to exist. And we need to be at least somewhat internally consistent with our criticisms. Like, I want to tell you, like, these are the things that I like. And that way you can judge whether or not that's a deal breaker for you, as opposed to saying, well, you know, that's a loser. Better luck next time. And you're like, that's not really how we should be talking about this stuff.
They finally fixed the audio bug thingy last month. So now it sounds normal. The video sounds normal now. It's not like...
Yeah, but it's still recording mono,
heavy.
Right?
No, I think it records stereo now.
Is the Pixel 3 finally recording stereo? Because it didn't at launch.
So it's recording right now. I could snap here and then snap it. I'll check it in post.
Well, but I mean, like, you know, it took Apple... I mean, it took Apple 10 years to figure out we had 2 ears and that we might like stereo recording in our videos. So I wouldn't put it past Google to copy them for longer than they should.
It's not revolutionary until Apple does it, you know.
Well,
they invented ears.
It's not revolutionary until a dozen companies do it first, and then Apple does it, and then Google copies it, and then does one thing a little bit better, and then you have night sight, and people are acting like you should buy a phone for one camera mode of an HDR processing effect, long exposure, in an app that you can put on any other comparable phone.
Since we're talking about cameras, what are your thoughts on mirrorless cameras? Like, do you see yourself buying one anytime soon?
Well, I mean, like, I shoot everything on Panasonic now. Like, I moved over to Micro Four Thirds. I had to walk away from Canon just because I felt their division of feature set. I wanted to make the move to 4K as soon as I got my hands on a Samsung NX1. And that camera was way ahead of its time. I'm actually doing this on a busted, this live stream on a busted Samsung NX30. Where I cracked the sensor filter that does the sensor cleaning, but I'm keeping it. I like my little ghost of a shadow. It still works, and I'm kind of broke because I buy a bunch of phones, and that's stupid. So I wanted to make that change right away. I seriously contemplated. I just said seriously, and my iPhone turned on, and now Siri is recording me. Again, smart assistant's not so smart. I seriously considered Sony. I was going to go with maybe an A7, and it's a silly little thing, but I still want an articulated LCD. So
yeah, same. I don't like the tilting screen on the Sonys. That's kind of useless.
Well, and I do enough, like, prop up the phone, set up a tripod in a busy convention hall, talk to camera, show off gadget, and then do B-roll. And Wi-Fi apps work well, but if you've ever been on a trade show floor, the speed at which you need to capture your commentary and your footage, and it's even that second to like search for the Wi-Fi, find your camera, link it up, go into remote operation mode. Like, even that's just sucking the momentum out of what's already a very high adrenaline situation, where instead I prop the phone on a tripod, I use a slightly wider lens, I flip out the screen, I poke the screen where my face is, and I push record. Is so much easier to get a grip on. And then other things too, where it's a smaller package. I don't mind having poor low light capabilities or a longer depth of field, a less shallow depth of field. So I kind of made that transition, with the G7. Now I'm on a G85, and my next camera will probably be whatever comes after the G9. So I'm happy with Micro Four Thirds right now. And if I make any move, Panasonic has done really well. I like their feature sets. I like their focus on video. I might consider moving up to their full frame camera in a couple years.
Oh, great. Because so I was thinking about getting the Canon EOS RP. Like, did you have a look at RP?
I mean, in reading up on specs, it seems fine. And I really like Canon IQ. I've got a ton of Canon glass. I came from a Canon 7D, 7D Mark I before I moved over to Samsung, and then Samsung abandoned me, and then I moved over to Panasonic. Canon IQ is awesome. I love Canon white balance. I love the look of how Canon plays with light, as opposed to trying to find the true scientific white of your subject. I've gotten so many amazing shots out of my 7D and some good glass, all thanks to just auto processing white balance. Like, that would have looked like garbage on any other phone. I mean, on any other camera, IMO. But the thing that holds me back is they keep carving up some features for more expensive products when, you can shoot 60 frame per second 4K video at insane, like an 80 or 90 megabit per second data rate on a phone. It is pants on head dumb that we aren't getting some of those capabilities in a mid-ranger camera body from Canon. So as much as I love the glass, and as much as I love like the actual expertise that goes into some of the feature set on a Canon, I want 4K. And I don't want to spend $3,000 on a camera body to get 4K, or not have a stupid crop to get 4K or something. I feel like Canon keeps holding that back from me when other manufacturers are happy to just fork it over and let me play.
Yeah, that's true. My Pixel just ran out of storage.
I think that's about as good a place to wrap up as any. You'll pardon, yes. I do kind of want to bounce because I just got an email that my local Best Buy has a package prepped for me.
9 is here.
For me to go pick up a Nokia 9 Pureview, and I really want to rub that on my face a whole bunch. If you don't mind, I know we didn't really kind of cover all of the MWC topics that we talked about, but
we did cover everything.
Oh, good. Oh, we actually made it through the list. Okay, good.
Yes.
Good. I feel better then about.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap this up, and why don't you tell people where they can find you on the interwebs?
Oh, for sure. So I post most of my content as SomeGadgetGuy. If you do a loose search for that, there's SomeGadgetGuy.com. Twitter, Instagram. I'm starting to pick up a little bit more on Twitch for some of my mobile gameplays and Let's Plays. And then, of course, on YouTube. It's technically youtube.com/Juan Bagnell, but if you search for Some Gadget Guy, you'll find me there too. And then I also host content for Newegg. So if you go to Newegg's YouTube channel, you'll see me a lot there. We actually did a poll on folding phones, and the LG V50 took like 15% of the vote.
Wow. Didn't see that coming.
I was very surprised by that. I really thought that phone would get a lot more hate, but there was like a core group of people that were like, no, I don't want a bending phone. I want a regular phone that I can snap on another screen. And you're like, okay, that's a not insignificant number of people with a different opinion than what we're told we should like. So kudos. And then you'll also catch me, like I said, just around a bunch of other properties, podcasts. I do tech commentary for local news here in Los Angeles. So you'll see me on Fox LA, sometimes on NBC or KTLA. But yeah, I mean, I'm around. I'm kind of easy to find.
You're omnipresent. You're present everywhere.
I just like watching everybody all the time and knowing everything. So that's that's my jam. I'm watching you right now. Watch us talk about this. It's a really terrible Modest Mouse song, Paper Thin Walls. You should take a listen. It's awesome.
True. That's pretty interesting. All right, Juan. It was really awesome having you on, and I'll see you on the internet. And you must be getting late for your Nokia 9. I want to see that picture really soon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's coming out today. I mean, as soon as I crack that thing out of the box, I'm taking some photo of something with it. So be on the lookout. But no, thank you for having me, man. This is fun. We should definitely do this again soon.
Oh, yes. Really, really soon. All right, folks. That was all for this week's episode. I hope you liked it. Like, share, subscribe, do your thing. And if you have any feedback, comment, or critique, hit me up on Twitter. It's at ShimonIPS. That is SHIMONIPS. Just let's have a chat. Let's have a conversation and discuss how we can make this even better. And hey, here's a little bonus for you. If you've made it so far into this podcast, tweet at me using the hashtag ShimonPS4 and let's keep the meme alive. Oh, also, do let me know whom I should bring next on the podcast. It can be anyone, you never know. Alright, that's it, folks. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.